Welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show. This is the rollover segment with Phil Ranelin. And Phil, I apologize about the abrupt cutoff yesterday, but I wanted you to finish your story about Eric Dolphy and
Sure.
and continue on. So why don't you take it away?
All right. Yeah. Unfortunately, when we stopped, I was in the middle of saying, "Well, don't think I'm crazy," but I was about to explain something about an event that took place when I was about to do a performance dedicated to Eric Dolphy. So in 2003, I had a grant to workshops and final performance built around Eric Dolphy. So we're about to start rehearsing for this performance. I had a quintet in place, and everything was all set. And I got a call from a singer friend of mine who heard about the event, and his name was Mark Broyard. And he had written some lyrics for one of Eric's songs. And it sounded like a great thing to do, so I hired him to also perform with us. And he related a story. This is about why I would say, don't think I'm crazy. He related a story that has to be true. Other than that, he would burn in hell, because what happened was he had befriended, or I should say the Dolphy family had befriended him. He was a 17, 18-year-old man at the time, and he happened to have met Eric Dolphy's parents. And so he was just, like one of the biggest Eric Dolphy fans in the world. So he started taking the Dolphys to the doctor appointments and just like kind of becoming their adopted son.
Sure.
In a way. And so as a result of that, they started sharing stories with him, and eventually one evening they gave him one of Eric's prize, what do you call it? One of his possessions that he had, and it was a very beautiful pipe, And I think on one album there's a picture with Eric smoking a pipe.
Yeah, I've seen that on several albums.
Yeah, that particular pipe, it was given to my friend Mark Broyard one evening. So the story, I'm finally getting to the story.
It's fine, yeah, it's good.
As he goes home, it's a little late at night, so he's kind of tired, and so he's halfway asleep, and he revealed the story that Eric came to him in this, half-sleep, half-awake state, and revealed to him how much he appreciated the fact that he was taking care of his parents and this whole thing. And so he that's what I'm saying, he is in this state, and all of a sudden he kind of comes out of, and he said, I want you to write some lyrics on one of my songs. Long story short, he wakes up, and the backyard was full of birds in the tree behind him. Now, Eric Dolphy was really associated with birds. He used to play bird calls. That's part of the story. So I said, well, look, you're hired. I want you.
Yeah.
And then I received another call from another friend of mine about a week later, I think the day before we were going to rehearse again. And he's a tremendous flute player, and he, when he was 9 years old, he went to Eric Dolphy's graveside and read the inscription, which said, Eric Dolphy, a man in his word, a man, I don't know the exact quote, but anyway, it really affected this 9-year-old kid, and from that point, he started playing flute. I said, well, man, you that close, I'm going to hire you too. So anyway, I ended up with a great band, and that was the beginning of the Eric Dolphy Roots project, and that kind of ended with me going to Panama and seeing Eric's roots, even though he wasn't born
Yeah, I was going to say, like, sometimes, you're not, it's happened to me too, where you don't have any, personal connection per se with these people, but yet you run into enough people or enough musicians or artists that have these stories about how they were affected by a certain individual in real life, or through stories, or through, insignias on gravestones. And you just sort of begin to feel, maybe this is sort of the next chapter,
Right. Yeah, he was a powerful spirit. I do know that. Yeah. He
Who?
wasn't.
Phil, I wanted to ask you. You went when you left Indianapolis. Like you said, Wes Montgomery had a day job. It was you went to New York first. Is that correct?
Well, I went to New York, but I didn't really stay there. It was like the longest point that I stayed was like a month at one point. I met some people, didn't do a lot of playing, but Ray Hubbard introduced me to a lot of people, and I met some other people. But Thelonious Monk, I remember going to the famous club there. Not the Fire Spot, but
the Half Note.
Actually, the club was kind of named after him. But anyway, it was during the daytime. We went over there, and I met Monk, which was really exciting, And but actually, I didn't stay because I was raising a family, and I didn't see how I could really provide for them at that point. It would have been a little rough. I had two real young kids at the time.
Yeah, so you felt you were trying to balance the classic balance between art, your livelihood, and supporting a family at that time. You're not alone there.
Right. Yeah.
And it was not.
From my background, like I didn't want to lay that on them, like the hunger thing, those guys were halfway starving there at the time. Great musicians, So, I came back to Indianapolis and eventually just moved over to Detroit, which was much closer, and I had a little more security, to be honest, when I went over there,
When you first did your family go with you to Detroit?
Well, to be quite honest here, I had broken up with my wife by that time. So, I went to Detroit alone.
Yeah, no, I mean it's.
I was close. I was 300 miles away, so I could get back to see my kids on weekends and when I had free time and stuff. So that's the situation with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's happened countless times. Where I've talked to guys from your generation and even before that, and it's like, at some point you're drawn to either domestication and figuring out how to live your life with a day job, or pursuing your creative, your artistic side, and that might cause a breakdown of the family. But it's nice to know that you can maintain good relationships with your kids, because
even with my ex-wife, even now to this point, at least I have that I can look back on, and we are actually friends. So she helped, not help, but she basically raised my kids without me being there for a long period of time. But there was no resentment, and like I say, it was never really ugly scene, between us.
Absolutely, no. It was. I think that in the long and she. I think in a lot of ways, especially when your kids are young. I mean, you want to keep showing them that there are all these all these possibilities in life. You want to let them. You want to show them that there are still these opportunities for you to grow and dream and explore through music or whatever. And at the time, from a living situation, it wasn't gonna work. But like you said, you guys still have a civil relationship and a good relationship, which is really what life is about.
Oh yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question here, and I had it written out yesterday. I had to ask you, I know you were 300 miles away, but did you find Detroit, or did Detroit find you?
I believe Detroit found me. I'll explain that. I had a sister who I recently lost. She was younger than I, and really, really close. But at the time, she had just got married and had moved to Detroit, right? So I had a friend, not a friend, but the club that I met in West Montgomery was called the Hubbub. So occasionally I would go by there and sit in with whatever band that was playing there. So this particular Saturday, it was a band from Detroit that was playing over there. I mean, I had no idea who was playing. I just went to the jam session, right? So I get to the jam session, sit in with the guys. Great band, and had a great time, and they really enjoyed my playing. And so the leader, whose name was Sam Sanders, after the gig was over, he said, "Hey man, you sure sound good. You busy down here?" I said, "Man, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of free weekends."
Yeah, right.
So he said, "Well, look, man, let me tell you something. I can hook you up right away. If you ever decide to come to Detroit, please let me know.
Wow.
Because we need some trombone players up there, and they would love you, man. And I'm not just jiving, man. I'm doing tours with Motown, and so if you ever decide, let me know." So I decided in about 3 days, and I called because I knew I had a place to stay. I have to admit that was one reason. I could stay with my sister and until I could afford my own apartment.
Sure.
So I jumped on it, man. And so and the other part of that is, okay, I go to Detroit actually it was maybe a couple of weeks after I had sit in with Sam's group, and I moved to Detroit, man. I just picked up and moved to Detroit, and told my sister, I'm gonna need a place for a while. And she, always one of my biggest supporters, no problem. So I get to Detroit, I'm there a day, and I talk to Sam, and 2 days later I'm at the rehearsal for one of the groups that he was playing with. And he said, "Hey, I got a tour coming up with the Temptations." I said, "Cool." So I'm there less than 2 weeks, and I'm back in Indianapolis with the Temptations.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's what a cool. I mean, that you must have been. That's a trip. That's a trip.
Yeah. So from that point on, I was kind of hooked into Motown. And there's another story that when I went out with one of Stevie's tours, I went out on a couple of Stevie Wonder tours. Stevie, at the end of the tour, he couldn't see, but he felt me go by on the bus one day, and he said, "Hey, listen, before the tour ends, make sure you give your number to my manager." Now, I had this was maybe a year or maybe a year and a half after I was in Detroit, but I had been trying to get on some of those Motown sessions ever since I was there, right? With no luck.
Right.
Some of my musician friends had recommended me, but it didn't work out. They didn't ever call. So when I gave my number to his manager, 3 days later, they're calling me for a session, in Motown. So, yeah.
Now, it was because you had Motown. I mean, everyone knows Detroit as Motown, or at that time, but the Temptations were also the Gordy label. So was that they were all?
They were Motown.
They were Motown. So, what can you describe how big the bands, those the sections were for those singers? I mean, were they big bands? Were they quintets? What was the scene like when you were going on a tour with the Temptations, or even in the studio?
Oh no, they were pretty not big bands, but 12, 13, 14 pieces. So it's a pretty large group.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah. So they did things big, So.
And it was primarily like which it was a lot of brass. What kind of instruments would be there?
Yeah, like it varied, but there was always at least 1 or 2 trombones, 2 or 3 trumpets, and a couple, 2 or 3 reeds, in the rhythm section. Sometimes larger, sometimes according to the venue. But and sometimes some of the horns were picked up in the cities we were going. Like if we were traveling with, say, 10, and the situation called for more, then they might hire 3 or 4 extra horn players, and it's like a reading job. Like guys come in rehearsal and rehearse the charts, and there we go. So. Yeah, that's the way that worked.
And I mean, talk a little bit about everything really happened. It seemed like it almost happened overnight. I mean, it's when you went there to visit your sister, you sat in, and the next within a month you're back in Indianapolis playing with the Temptations, and then connected
Most
with.
Most of the people there in Indianapolis had no idea I had even moved. I'm serious. I mean,
I believe it. No, I think it's great.
Wow, why is Philip up there with the Temptation? So yeah, it's life.
So, when you first of all, why did Motown? I think I know the answer, but did you see Motown actually leave Detroit and then move to Los Angeles? Why did that actually happen in the first place?
Well, I have no idea why it happened, but yeah, I was in the middle of, being associated with them when it did happen. And as it was happening, they still were maintaining office in Detroit. I'm not sure it could possibly still even be one now. I don't know, but at the time, it was kind of like, yeah, they moved to Los Angeles, but they still, were doing some sessions there still in Detroit. So it was kind of like a transition period, And I don't know.
But I guess what I'm trying to get into is what was the because you were doing the R&B and the soul and for these guys, what were you doing at the time? Who were you collaborating with? Did you have a band? Were you in a band at that time?
To deal with my own music, yeah. Well, I had as soon as I got to Detroit, of course, I'm working, but I'm also hanging out with the other guys. So I met Harold McKinney, who had a band called the Creative Profile. That included, once again, Sam Sanders and Marcus Belgrave was in that group. Jimmy Allen was playing drums. Ed Pickens, a wonderful bass player. So it was a very hip group, and we was playing some great music, So I had that going on the side, and of course, that didn't, the gratification was wonderful, and it ended up that Harold McKinney, I think I expressed this earlier, he was kind of hooked in politically in Detroit. The McKinney family is very famous. They like as famous as the Jones family,
Right.
In a sense. They're in Detroit, at least. It's a huge family of musicians. I can't remember how many, but there's Kiani Ziwadi, whose name was Bernard McKinney before he adapted that name. Pretty famous trombone player in the 60s in New York. And Shams McKinney and Harold McKinney and Ray McKinney and man, it was a bunch of them, and all of them were great musicians. So anyway, he started. He ended up with that government program that existed in down arts. Yeah. So yeah, man, it was a very, very wonderful time. I actually was playing with three different groups other than the Motown things at the time.
So what kind of, when you say politically, what does that mean? I mean, does it mean it was dedicated to the city of Detroit? It was dedicated to, when you talk about what kind of awareness was the McKinney family trying to? What were the values? What were the incentives that they were trying to provide to people?
McKinney family, they were, very cultural aware people, and black awareness was big with the family, and we had people like Roy Brooks that was in some of the bands that we had, and it was a extended family. When I say politically, they were into the politics of Detroit that actually resulted into employment for musicians that weren't doing anything in the daytime. So there were different programs that were available, especially in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. These programs existed because the government was trying to patch up Detroit because of what had happened in 1967.
Exactly.
So they didn't want to see any more of that. So it was pacification, I guess, And so McKinney, Harold, was very astute, and I don't know what college he went to or anything, but he was, he had a degree and stuff, and so he was, hooked in politically, but he was also just one of the cats, as we would say.
I wanted to, you brought up a guy's name I was going to ask you about, because I know he's a Detroit native, and I was hoping you could talk a little. It's a guy that I've really respected, and he didn't make a lot of albums as a leader, but it was Roy Brooks.
Roy.
And I was.
What a sad story.
Can you talk a little bit? The concert that I promoted that you went to, Bobby Pierce played on that, and Bobby talked about playing with Eddie Jefferson and James Moody in the same time period, and Roy was on drums. But he said Roy, such a massive talent and such an articulate and bright guy, but was always kind of fighting himself. And
yeah, he unfortunately had chemical imbalance, bipolar.
Yeah.
We didn't know at the time what it was, But he would have these mood swings, and he would just go pretty far out there, A lot of people thought he was on drugs, but he wasn't. He was just, we say, crazy, but he had a chemical imbalance and he couldn't help himself, and he ended up, the system kind of did him in because, the way he went out of here was really awful. Like you said, great talent. He was an inventor. He had the patent on a mechanism with the drums that he called the breathatone.
Yeah, can you talk about that?
Oh, well, I played with him when he played it. He would play, and he had this hose. Pretty simple in a way. He had holes that were drilled into his tom-toms, and I guess even the snare too. Anyway, and he would breathe in through these tubes into the drums to change the pitch of the drums. It was really great sound. And
unbelievable.
He had the patent on that. I don't know if anyone ever produced that or not, but Roy Brooks owns the patent.
Okay, I wasn't sure if he's left us already.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's one of those guys where you look at him and he looks, you can just tell he was a teddy bear, but he also fought his own demons, and if you're not on the right medication for that stuff, then it can eat away at you. And
it really did. He got to the point where he was just almost uncontrollable, and they had to put him in the hospital. And once that happened, it was all over. I mean, he ended up losing both his legs and. Through diabetes, and it was really, really painful, a sad story. I mean, the way he left.
And we should try to collaborate on a Detroit reunion, Roy Brooks tribute concert in Detroit sometime. I'll tell you, I would love just to bring some of that feeling back to all you guys that did so much for that city, and like you said, I mean, there's signs of revival and energy in that city. It would be, I just want to, that's sort of my goal, is that I know that, I don't know this for a fact, but I just feel that, I'm just going to say it, I just feel that in some ways, the black community, just, your voices are so desperately needed in this time. I don't hear anybody from the black community standing up to defend our president or the policies, because I think, like we talked about yesterday, like you said, the black media is not even aware of what jazz is or what's going on or where it came from. And Go ahead.
And the other thing is people are these days are afraid to speak out.
They're afraid. They're afraid, man.
Yeah, they're afraid, because they feel if they really speak out, either something's going to happen to them in some way that's going to change their life if they still are around. I mean, according to what you say. So it takes courage to live, and a black man in America, like that's part of my perseverance, angle too, it's no joke growing up here and being able to survive and not being institutionalized and reach a certain age and still feel proud about what you've become and what you are and what you stand for. It's quite a challenge.
I couldn't. I think that was really well articulated. I just feel at this point, I say to myself, I'm white, but I just feel like, I am not afraid at all to speak out. I feel like the problem is there's a lot of white people. There's a lot of white people in this country that know what's going on right now is totally wrong too, and they know it's ridiculous, and it's a dog and pony show, and it's actually really detrimental to our country, and they don't want to say anything because they're afraid of standing up for actually what's right. And it really
it's scary, isn't it?
It really, that's kind of, it is scary. My folks are in town, and I was ranting and raving last night, and they're like, just don't get so worked up about it. It's not worth it. I said, what are you talking about? I said, that's what life is about. I'm not going to sit around and be one of these, silent majority people who know, they know what's going on. They know it's wrong, and they know that it's no way to.
Yeah, that's sad, isn't it? It really is. You know it's wrong, but well, we can't say anything about that because of this and that. It might be repercussions. What are you living for?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Listen, if someone wants to come after me or there's repercussions, and then that's the way it's going to go down. But that's it. I know that what I'm fighting for is the right thing, and I know the kind of insidious, sort of backhanded, clearly, in my mind, politically and racially motivated tactics by certain segments of our population. It's just. And that's the thing, Phil. You've played thousands of shows, and like you said, it's, the gratification, playing within the group, playing good music, feeling that bond between you and the crowd and the musicians. You were never compensated for it. Never the way you should have been, and it was all because of the art form. You've done something.
Still looking for the check.
That's the problem now is people are searching for the big hit, we keep using this word, but it's sort of the pacifying music in today's society, the sort of just enough music to get people to get through their day, but that artist is looking to cut something that is understandable, not complex, something very simple, and then they're going to walk off with enough money to feed generations of families. And I say to myself, What have they done to better society? That's the disconnect, because it seems to me like you should be compensated based on quantity and quality, not just one song that has mass appeal to it. And I just feel that's a value issue in our society now. To me, people say, "Oh, it's great what you're doing." Nobody else is doing what you're doing, and you're giving these guys, you're shining a spotlight on them. And I say to myself, I agree with that, but at the same time, I also believe what I'm doing is the right thing. And I don't know I don't know how that has gotten lost in translation to me.
Well, I certainly don't know either. I'll say this. When you think logically, though, the way things are, there's so much that's not logic. Like everything you just said, that's logic, man. But in the real world, the way things are now, you're talking logic, man.
The logic is not. Logic is illogical.
It don't work.
It don't work, man.
Not unless you have billions of dollars. So yes, it's a struggle. Life is a struggle, man. The truth. If you're dealing with the truth, then you're gonna have, it's gonna be some rough times, But at least you can go to sleep at night and know that you're trying to deal with the truth, man. To tell the truth in 2011, sure, it takes a lot of what, man.
It's true, and there's so many things in my mind. I don't want to get too wrapped up in it. It's just I know in my mind that I would have loved to have been around during that the real consciousness movements that you were a part of, in the late '60s and early '70s. But at the same time, I also feel like, when you would be with Freddie, or the Montgomery brothers, or the guys in Detroit, it was like kind of a shared thing. You guys were all you were all in it together. And now it seems to me that the disparity in wealth, the amount someone can say, oh yeah, this guy's going to make 300, even an athlete in black, blacks are still the superior athletes in our society. I don't know if you still follow sports, closely, but
Oh yeah.
and these guys are gifted. I mean, they're awesome athletes, and yet they're getting compensated, to a degree that I don't know if even a human being is worth that much money. I don't know how you get your head around that kind of stuff. I just don't find that to be very therapeutic for a society in general whether you treat art, education, music, or just teaching with, just be happy you have a job or good luck getting by, and then you're going to give an athlete, $2 or $3 million a year for running around on a football field and intercepting passes. These are things that, it just...
No, I hear you. But the thing is, you're right, I agree, but in terms of what they're receiving, their compensation compared to the owners is merited. Because the owners, they're making millions, but the owners are making billions. So, I don't deny them. If they're going to go out there and be the best in the world at what they're doing, I guess they should get paid. But in proportion to the arts, it's totally out of whack. We know that.
Exactly. Nobody should. And
listen, if Kobe Bryant can make $20 million a year, maybe I should make 500,000.
I think like six.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think like three quarters for Phil Ranelin. We'll go for $750,000 would be great.
Yeah,
Exactly. No, how do you equate somebody's value? I mean, the idea that I could throw on a track of perseverance and on the way to work, and I could
someone's soul will be healed.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I could be in a really bad mood, and I could throw on, Mystic Voyage, and next thing you know, I'm at school, and I'm totally lifted, and I come in, and my whole day is affected. I'm a better teacher because of it. The kids learn more because of it. How could you put a premium on music? How could you put you can't put a...
There again, Jake, you're making too much sense.
Yeah, all right. I guess I'll just start. I'm with
you, man.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that one of the, if not the greatest year of your life, one of the top year of your life was 1976. You received the key to the city of Detroit, and I was hoping you could talk about how that all came about and how that all worked.
Okay, well, 1976, the tribe performed with Donald Byrd in the Ford Auditorium in downtown Detroit. And as a result of that, the whole group received the key to the city. So, since I'm in the group and I was the leader of the group, that's on my resume. That's the way that worked. But yeah, it's true. It's legitimate. Yeah, it was a beautiful experience. Donald. Some people will realize this. Like his name is Donald Byrd, right? Spelled B-Y-R-D.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, B-Y-R-D. But actually, Donald is a licensed pilot also. So I don't know if his last name inspired him to become a pilot, but he...
Wow, I didn't know that. That's funny.
So he offered, that he offered. He was flying back to D.C. right after the gig. So he said, "Hey Phil, you want to hang out? You want to go over to D.C.?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, I'm getting ready to go down. I'm flying over." I said, because I didn't know it at the time. I said, "You mean to tell me you have an airplane?" He said, "Yeah, let's go." I said, "Well, you know what? I don't think so." I didn't know he was really, that good, but yeah, he's been flying for a long time.
I was thinking that maybe you weren't sure how you were going to get back to Detroit.
That was part of my thoughts too, but I have to admit I wasn't, too courageous about flying with Donald Byrd, not knowing how good he was. I didn't want, there was a little fear factor involved in my decision not to go.
How did what did you do? When you started the Tribe label and you made an album in '73, and then you made another one in 1976. In that interim period, that 3-year period, were you playing live? Were you playing with other guys that would come into Detroit? I guess what I'm trying to get at is, did you not? Was it a conscious decision not to make other albums, or it just took that long to kind of come up with new material?
Well, it took that long to come up with money.
Yeah.
Because, I was writing all the time, but I was playing with other bands, but the financial aspect, because, as you know, well, maybe you don't know, but we finance all of our projects, because we were the label, and that's interesting you brought that up. During that time, I'm hitting with Motown quite a bit. I'm doing okay, financially, but the money that I was making, a lot of it I was trying to save in order to go back into the studio. So that was what was happening with that. I was doing some things over in Canada with the Elmwood Casino, back in, like playing with different groups that would come through there. And that's how I actually met Ella Fitzgerald and Lena Horne and people like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that. I wanted to ask you about one woman in particular that I noticed that you have collaborated with. Is it Vi Red?
Vi Red, yeah.
I mean, that is, this is one of the reasons I said, when did Phil play with her, and to talk a little bit about her as a person, because this is a talk with the spirits more than anything else.
Yeah, Vi is a sweetheart. Like I met her. I didn't know Vi Red until I moved here to Los Angeles, and I can't remember how I met her, but I believe she called me. I think what happened was, the thing that kind of got people's attention for me when I come to LA is 2 weeks later I'm on the bandstand with Freddie Hubbard at the Roxy.
Oh, so, wow.
Bam! Oh, this new cat's in town. He's playing with Freddie Hubbard. So word got around. So Vi called me for a gig, and I met her, and like I said, she's a real sweetheart, and alto, excuse me, but she could play like any man.
I know.
Beautiful sound, and could sing like a bird also. A lot of people don't know that. She's a great singer, but a sweet person, and I met her and played with her son, Randy, and I even as recently as maybe 3 months ago spoke with her, and she still plays occasionally.
Oh.
It has to be maybe 84
Oh man, that's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that she's still doing great in her life. Her albums are, especially from the stuff that she did from the early '60s. It's just her sound is just so warm and nice. I wasn't sure if you'd played with her earlier, but you obviously gigged with her when you went to the West Coast. I wanted to. So how did that work? So you moved to. You went to Los Angeles, and Freddie's like, "Hey, I'm in town," or you just joined and you were with his band. How did that work?
What happened was Freddie and I had been trying to hook up ever since he left New York. He would always say, "Man, when you gonna move to New York? When you move to New York, man, I got some work for you. I got you can do some sessions." And I said, "Well, I don't know, Freddie. I'm not quite ready." So anyway, when I finally get here to Los Angeles, one of the first people I called, of course, was Freddie. I called a lot of people, but he was one of the first. So I called, and I got a message machine, and I left a message. I was staying at the Hollywood Holiday Inn in downtown Hollywood, and me and my wife at the time. And so, second day I called him, and I didn't hear back from him. And so a week later, I'm wondering why Freddie hadn't called me. I said, "I wonder what's up with Freddie." I didn't take into account that he was out of town or something, and he was, but I didn't know it. So my mind had said, "Oh, Freddie got funny. I didn't moved out here. He won't even return my call."
Right.
So anyway, about another few days goes by. Total of probably 10 or 11 days, and the phone rings, and it's Freddie. And I pick up the phone. "Philip, you out here?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh, you mean you living out? You done moved out here?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, I got a gig I want to use you on." I said, "Oh, cool." I said, "It's at the Roxy." So, just so happens that, I'm here for a week and a half or so, and I'm going around different places and playing. And so I met, won't call a name, but I met this other trombone player, and he told me that he was playing with Freddie Hubbard at the Roxy.
Oh, boy.
So I'm a country guy, I'm trying to, play a little politics. I don't want to rub no one wrong. So as Freddie's telling me this, I said, "Hey, Freddie, but didn't you, I called the guys, and I said, he told me he was doing that gig with you." So he said, "Well, you here now." I said,
"Oh, man. That's unbelievable." We'll dispatch the other one.
I'm still hemming and hawing with Freddie, and he's beginning to think, well, and he just blurts out to me. He said, "Well, look, do you want the gig or not?"
Oh.
And I said, "Freddie, are you kidding me?" I said, "When's the rehearsal?"
Oh, so great.
So yeah.
I don't think I have. The idea with these guys, like Freddie, it's like, I couldn't do that where I would like offer somebody the job and then say, "Oh, well, but Phil Ranelin's here and he's better, so I'm just, are you gonna, I'm gonna take Phil now, and that other person I'll figure out what to do." I mean, it's for me, I view that as confrontation. Freddie viewed it as, I just want my band to sound as good as possible, and if Phil's in town, then I want to take him.
Right. Yeah.
Who was in that band?
I don't think it would be guys that you would necessarily know other than Carl Burnett. Carl was in the band.
Was Hadley Callowman in that band?
Hadley was in the band. Yeah, Hadley was in the band. Right. Okay, Hadley and Carl and can't remember the piano player's name.
Maybe like Billy Childs?
It wasn't Billy, no,
Yeah.
it wasn't Billy. This was prior to Billy. Um,
It's okay.
okay, now he had, for this particular engagement, I tell you who was one of the people that was in the band was the harpist from Detroit. Another sweet lady. What's her name? She's been gone now quite a while. If I would call her name, you would recognize it. It's just a shame I can't.
It's okay. No, I wanted to ask you. So the idea was how long was was it a one night thing at the Roxy? Was it a week long thing? I mean,
it wasn't a one night thing. I'm trying to remember if it was just a weekend. It could have been a week. I think it was a week. Yeah.
And so.
I think it was Saturday or something like that.
When Freddie said, "Do you want the gig or not?" He kind of did. He mean, "Do you want to?" Like this is you can come on for a while, or did he mean it would just be for that Roxy gig? I mean, in music.
Well, at the time he was just talking about that gig because that's what we were talking about. You know, like he offered me the gig for the Roxy, and I was kind of thinking ahead of myself and trying to say, well, okay, now, if I take this gig with Freddie, am I going to burn this bridge and trying to think ahead and all that, but in reality, like, give me a break. I mean, how many people are going to turn down a gig with Freddie Hubbard? I wasn't about to do that, but sometimes I would tend to try to be politically okay. New guy in town, and this other guy, he had some connections too, so, but, as it turns out, shoot, I'm taking a gig with Freddie Hubbard.
Absolutely. And did you stayed on with Freddie for a couple of years after that?
Well, Freddie and I had been playing previous to that, whenever the opportunity presented itself. So it wasn't like this first time I'm ever played with Freddie Hubbard. That's certainly not the case. But I wasn't going out on all the tours that he was, doing at the time because he couldn't afford it. But I played from that point on. We did a few things around here. We went down to San Diego and played, and I think I might have went up to the Keystone Corner during that little period. And then it might have been a 6-month period where, I didn't do anything with him. But, I went on a nice tour with him the following year. Not an international tour, but a national tour.
Because I mean,
let me just continue.
Go ahead.
Say that in 1964, that's really the first time that I had played with Freddie since high school. And what happened was he came through Indianapolis with his band, and I didn't realize he was in town. Saw the sign, stopped, and talked to the club owner and said, "Is Freddie really here?" And he said, "Yeah, man, he's opening up tonight." I said, "Oh, okay." So I came to the club early, and I had my horn, and I'm sitting at the bar. And Freddie walks in the club, and he looked at me. He said, "Hello, Ranelin." He said, "You got your horn with you?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, I want you to play, but
that's awesome.
Don't come up on the first number, cause you'll want to get paid."
Right.
I laughed and said, "Oh man, don't worry about that." So anyway, I sit out the first number, came up on the second number, and played the rest of the night. Right. So I almost like played the gig, So after the gig, he said, "Man, we sound good together, man. What you doing this weekend? You want to work?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Are you kidding?" Yeah. So I worked that weekend with him when he came through town that year, you know. So, I mean, you know, periodically, you know, a year might go by and I'd play with him again somewhere, and, you know. So it's been an ongoing relationship, musically, and but you know, like as far as the friendship aspect, you know, we were pretty cool.
I mean, it's such a what a great story. I mean, I you know, you might not think it's a big deal, but I just think it's so amazing that, you know, the idea that you could just show up one night. I mean, and get up on stage and play all his tunes. I assume you weren't studying his tunes. I mean, the idea that you just could go up there and fit in and sound really good is just a testament to the adaptability and the versatility of Phil Ranelin and all those guys that just like yourself who just, you know, the idea that it was a high school buddy, you hadn't seen him in a while, and then you just step in and it's like no time has passed. I find that to be absolutely remarkable.
Well, you right on point. With one exception, I had studied some of his tunes, and you know, I did know some of the things he was playing. But,
right.
But yeah, it's quite a feat. I mean, it's not like Joe Blow, the trumpet player. I mean, we're talking about Freddie Hubbard. We're talking about. In my opinion, you know, the greatest trumpet player that ever lived playing this music. You know, so.
Yeah, you're not. I mean, you're. There have been others to say the same thing. The skipper says that, and actually, Carl Burnett told me when we saw him in Los Angeles, we interviewed him, and he said that, you know, because, you know, Freddie had a kind of a split personality. He said that for all his erratic or eccentric tendencies, or when he would just kind of socially shut down, or, you know, he would just be real quiet, he said, you know, he made up for all that stuff when he was on. He said there was nobody that could touch him when he was playing. It made up.
No. Nobody. I mean, nobody could get to that point, to that level on the trumpet. You know, it's just incredible. I don't even know if the trumpet was intended to sound like. I mean, he played things on the trumpet that weren't intended to be played. I mean, it's incredible. But I thought she was going to go somewhere else with what Carl said, but I'll just say this. Not only that, which is totally true, but aside from that other erratic side of him, he was one of the most beautiful human beings you ever want to meet. He had a split personality. I mean, he could be kind and generous as anybody. You know, I've seen both sides, and I think that other side that people were annoyed by and kind of like, you know, it's pretty ugly, you know. I think that was a result of insecurity, you know, and also the insecurity was another reason he played so great. It was because he was always trying to prove himself.
Oh, wow, that's beautifully put.
He was trying to say to me sometime, he said, I don't think people like me. I don't think, you know. I said, hey, come on, man, you know, not like what you playing? Are you kidding me? Because he was always, you know, trying to please the people, too. And I guess secretly we all are. You know, because it's an obligation in a way, you know, like we're not just playing for ourselves. At least I'm not, you know.
No, I mean, and I think that it was so well put. I mean, there's this insecurity or this need to feel that you have to prove yourself, and it's in some ways I feel the same stuff in my teaching as when I teach. I work with kids that are blind or visually impaired, and a lot of them have additional disabilities, and you know, it's I somehow you know, I don't necessarily see all the gifts that I can give that I provide for these kids, And in a similar way, I think Freddie also, the idea of doubting yourself or feeling insecure is a way to sort of keep your edge.
Oh my God, that's right.
You know, and it keeps your edge.
Sure applied to him.
You know, and as a result, occasionally you get caught in the crossfire. You get kind of, you know, he might have been abrasive, or, you know, he would tongue lash.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he could certainly be that. I remember one time. I don't know how much time we got. Is this going to be like an insert or what?
Well, how you feeling? You want to take a quick break, or I mean, I got to probably. What do you want to do? Another 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah. I was going to say. I was going to tell another Freddie story.
Do it.
Do it now. Okay. So on that note of what you're just speaking, this one occasion where I was playing with Freddie at Royce Hall at UCLA here in Los Angeles, and so we were at the sound check. When I say we, the rest of the band was at the sound check. I think it was Herbie Lewis on bass and Tootie Heath was playing drums, and I'm not sure if it was Billy or the piano player. It was Hadley. Anyway, everybody's there except Freddie. So we go through the sound check and do, you know, that wasn't unusual. Sometimes he wouldn't make the sound check. So, but it's getting close to performance time.
Right.
And Freddie's still not here. And so then the promoter runs in the green room and says, "Hey, Freddie's on the way, and he wants the band to go up. He's not going to be here right at hit time, so he wants the band to go up." I said, "Oh, did Freddie say that?"
Yeah, right.
Because I know Freddie.
Mm-hmm.
I said, now, when you say the band, you mean the trio, right? No, the whole band. You know, everybody up on stage. I said, "Are you sure, Freddie? Look, will you get up there on?" I mean, you know, it's like that. So we go up, we play one number, and then we into the second number. As we're in the middle of the second number, and I'm in the middle of a solo, Freddie Hubbard bursts through the door, not the stage door, but the door that, how do you say this? You know, that everyone comes in to go to the concert.
Yeah.
The place is packed, right?
Oh my.
The place is absolutely packed. I guess 5,000 people is what that seats. But anyway, the door I never forget this. The door bursts open, and Freddie Hubbard walks through the door, and he looks up at me, and I'm in the middle of a solo, and his head dropped down, and I said, "Oh boy, I know what's next."
Oh, dude.
So I know Freddie, you know. So when he gets up on the bandstand, he vents all of his anger. Now he's wrong because he's late, right? But
right.
He's venting all of his anger at me because no one else was wrong but me for doing this, but because I'm the closest one to him, right? That's the whole thing. I'm the closest one to him, so I have betrayed him by going up there on the bandstand and playing before he was there. It would have been fine, even Hadley would have been up there, it might have been okay, but the trio was really what he wanted up there. So, anyway, he's shouting at me, man. He's like, "Philip Ranelin."
Oh, wait, this is during the performance.
This is during the performance.
Oh, my God.
Okay, now, people didn't realize what was going on. No one reacted really weird. Maybe this is part of the show or something.
Dude, they're like, we're getting more for our money right now.
So the whole set, he's hollering, "Philip Ranelin," because when he got mad at me, he would call me Philip. Sometimes he just called me Philip anyway. But the way he was saying it was, it was the anger, negative kind of thing. Yeah. "Philip Ranelin, my homie. I ought to bust you in the mouth."
Oh, man.
And he's saying this over and over and over, and I'm not responding. I'm not saying a word. I'm just playing the music. And so at the end of the set, we're going down the steps, and Tootie Heath was right in front of me. I think Hadley was in front of Tootie, and Freddie was in front of Hadley. So Freddie turns around, he looks at me and says, "I ought to bust you in the mouth." I said, "Well, come on, Freddie, bust me in the mouth. I guess you think I'm not going to bust you back in your mouth."
Right. He's totally in the wrong, too.
Yeah. And he knew it, but the point is, when I said that, he looked at me and he said, "Man, I ain't going to fight you. You might hit me in my mouth."
Oh.
I said, "That's a fact." So anyway, I didn't talk with him for about a week. And so when it kind of cooled down, I can't remember if I called him or he called me. I can't remember. But
It doesn't really matter.
We talked, okay, and everything was okay. So I went up to the house. And now it's all a joke because it's all in past, so we laughing and talking, and he said, "Man, I was mad that night. Let me show you something." So he took me upstairs. He was so peed off that night that he went upstairs and kicked a hole in the wall, and then all of it was because he felt that I let him down by going up on the bandstand when I knew that he always wanted the trio to go up there. So that's that story. What can I say?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's
totally wrong, but that was Freddie Hubbard. What can I say?
My last question for you, Phil, is at this point in time, your soul still breathes life, and you're talk a little bit about what you feel you have control over in your life right now, and how you want to, what you can do to bring a semblance of logic to our society that so desperately needs it. What can you do in today's world at this point that can bring logic to our country?
Well, personally, Jake, unfortunately, all I can do is do what I do. I don't have power to really bring logic to this society.
Yeah, no, I mean personally. You don't have to say it's very fortunate, but I'm just saying personally, because we only have control of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, hey, my plans are to keep playing music as long as I possibly can, to teach some, and to keep composing and hopefully performing. And I would love to do much more of all of that, and looking forward to that, and trying to keep my health intact, which is an ongoing thing. So that's my plan. Hopefully when I leave here, I will be still at the point of performing. That's what I love doing, and that's what I want to continue to do up until the moment, maybe even. So, that's my plan. There are some things that enter into our personal lives that are non-music related that seem to be really kind of throwing me off the path. Admittedly, right now I'm going through some personal problems, but I'm trying to remain strong. I'm dealing with things that I have no idea of how to solve. With issues back in my hometown and
Back in Indianapolis?
Yeah, it's kind of bothering me, but
Well, we've been talking with Phil Ranelin here on the rollover as part of a special edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, an appendage to the interview we did live on the radio yesterday to prove that Phil Ranelin is not crazy, and I think we fleshed that out, Phil. And I just want to tell you, man, you just keep being yourself, like you said, you always have been, and that's what makes you guys so special. Is you just want to express yourselves the way you feel fit, and you're not worried about. You don't want to be confined or boxed in, and I think that's part of the problem is in our society now is just the idea that everybody needs to be politically correct and boxed in and pigeonholed, and there's no and so creative expression is gone by the wayside. And I just want to say we're going to keep let's keep this collaboration going, man, because I know you got a lot more stories.
Man, and something you said yesterday, I reflected a little bit on that, and I definitely have to put you in touch with Greg. There has to be some way that something could happen, because I think you guys would hit it off real big too. So.
Well, Phil, it's been such a pleasure, man. I can't wait to do it again and be privy to some live music as well when the time presents itself.
There you go. Sounds good to me.
All right, my friend.
Thank you, Jake.
All right, Phil. Be good, man.
All right, man.
Talk to you soon.
soon.